Is it possible that the most powerful character in the Invincible universe isn't actually a Viltrumite? Throughout the course of Invincible, Viltrumites have been built up as the ultimate, unbeatable powerhouses of the universe. Their empire has lived for centuries, and even one Viltrumite presents as significant a threat to worlds that they go after as some of the greatest villains of Earth all combined. This is why Mark has such an immense pressure on his shoulders. He knows that the Viltrumites went to Earth, and so far, everyone has looked to him to protect them. But he may not be able to do it alone as one of the strongest heroes that Earth has to offer. But we do believe that there's another. And today, we'll talk about the upper limits of Adam Eve's power set, what she's actually capable of, how she's been held back for years, and why her power set is frankly a bit strange. Throughout the first season of Invincible, most of Adam Eve's power set is consolidated to solid light constructs, where she defaulted to creating shields and surfaces to aid in her combat. But we later learned that she has the ability to reorganize matter on an atomic level. The Adam Eve special showed us that she was a government weapon engineered to be the perfect national defense tool. But her creator, Dr. Elias Brandyworth, didn't believe that a child should be raised in a lab. So he designed a plan to smuggle her out of the facility and place her in the arms of a loving family, where hopefully she would grow up living a normal life without ever drawing attention from the government. Immediately, however, we learned that she saw the world differently and intrinsically understood how nature was connected on an atomic level. She could rearrange atoms, and the only limitations to her powers are mental. And we're not just talking about the mental blocks that keep her from changing sentient matter. Some fans have been critical of her superheroics after learning this though, and the question has been raised regarding why she defaults to energy constructs alone. If Eve can rearrange inanimate matter, then why is she deliberately handicapping herself by using a less effective set of powers? The reason why she uses solid light constructs more than anything else is because they are easy and don't require her to focus nearly as much. She does this because this is one of the few abilities she's comfortable with. But this is how her instincts developed because she has to be quick in a fight. But she has the ability to focus. She can rewrite reality itself if she wanted to. When she changes matter from one state to another, or changes an object from one material to another, she's not just willing it to suddenly become something else. She's literally taking the atoms apart and rebuilding them into something different. She is doing incredibly advanced inorganic chemistry calculations in her mind and figuring out where she has to put every individual atom in order to create the substance that she's envisioning. Mentally, she is building the world's most complicated Lego set piece by piece and requires great concentration. In theory though, Eve could come into a fight and turn her enemy's weapons or armor into inanimate objects, or harmless objects even. But when she's in the heat of the moment fighting for her life, then it becomes incredibly difficult to willingly deconstruct and then reconstruct atomic structures. Because of this, she's fallen back on her default power set. This does not reflect, however, anywhere close to her full potential, but is easy to use with minimal concentration so that she doesn't get killed in battle. For example, in the Adam Eve special, she confronts two street-level criminals and turns their ski mask to metal. But this is because they didn't pose an immediate threat to her, and therefore, she could concentrate on the molecular structures of the mask and rebuild them as she wanted. But when supervillains get involved, it becomes much more difficult. This is before we take into account the mental blocks that were placed on her to keep her from transforming sentient matter or tampering with the forces of life and death. Dr. Brandyworth made sure that even though she would be a weapon of mass destruction, that she couldn't directly affect humans or animals. But there are ways for these blocks to be broken. Usually, if Eve is under an extreme amount of stress. This time that she has done this before, she was confronting the government officials who had not only created her, but who had attempted to create siblings of her as well. Her birth mother had been turned into a brain-headed husk responsible for only producing more children that the government could experiment on. But each one of them was mutilated and mutated into a grotesque abomination since Dr. Brandyworth had left the project. 4 failed experiments were designed to recreate Eve's success, but Erickson, the suit who oversaw the program, did not see them as 3-dimensional human beings. Despite the fact that they were living people, he only wanted weapons, and so they grew up being perpetually experimented on until their bodies were nearly unrecognizable. Eve was so distraught by Erickson's heinous experiments that she snapped and manipulated his brain matter into forgetting the entire program. Erickson was still alive, and she didn't do anything permanent to his body, but Eve was able to bend his brain and completely destroy his memories, and therefore entire pieces of his personality. In the comics, and now in the 3rd season, Eve's mental blocks were removed yet again, this time when she was beaten within an inch of her life by the Viltrumite conquest. The stress of nearly dying was enough to lift her mental restrictions again and allow her to reconstruct her body atom by atom until she was completely healed. And she was able to injure Conquest enough for Mark to finally subdue him. This means that Adam Eve's best maneuver, logically speaking, would be to back out of a fight while someone else takes the brunt of the attack, and this would allow her time to focus without needing to worry about getting thrown around or seriously injured, since she cannot heal herself easily when the blocks are in place. Healing herself or others would require transforming sentient matter, which is almost impossible for her to do in her default form. So if she had someone else buy her time, she could focus on a more creative solution. She could take the time to give her attention towards completely stripping her enemy of all their inorganic assets. For example, she could turn Kill Cannon's laser into a rock, for instance. Instead, however, Kill Cannon was in the middle of trying to beat her, and so her mind has to juggle a ton of variables at once, which brings us to the arrival of the Viltrumites. There is one variable in the comics that ends up interfering with her powers, and will probably be adapted in Season 4. But there is a reason why Adam Eve isn't as effective in one-on-one combat as she is when building infrastructure or architecture. Eve helps the world economically by creating structures and resources for people to utilize, from growing lush forests in the arid deserts to creating shelters and buildings for those in need. Adam Eve is most effective in the reconstruction after a fight because her mind can only work so quickly. Most of the enemies she faces has the ability to speed blitz her, and just about any Viltrumite would be too fast for her to act offensively against. In terms of power output, she can't do damage against a Viltrumite using only her solid light constructs, or at least can't do a lot of damage, but she has to utilize this because of the fast-paced environment. But with teamwork, she can become basically unstoppable. In the comics, the fight with Conquest is probably the most powerful we see her in terms of fighting someone else. But we learn that the mental blocks also come down to when she is near death in old age. So Eve grows old until the point of natural death, but can then reverse her age and become young again. Since Mark is half Viltrumite, he is going to live for centuries, and the two of them are actually together far longer than Eve's natural lifespan. As it stands, however, Eve is an architect. She thrives in the aftermath of battles, and she can help people rebuild, so she doesn't seem like she has the physical strength or durability to contend with a Viltrumite one-on-one. Again, at least not indefinitely, although her fight with Conquest proved that she does put up an admirable match. We believe though that many of the weaker Viltrumites are just too fast to allow her to focus on anything beyond solid light constructs, so her power set is essentially neutered by what she can respond to in time. She can't just think fast enough to do more. And besides, Viltrumites are largely unarmed when it comes to their combat style. They don't use much in the way of weaponry. In the comics, Eve does well against many Viltrumites, not just Conquest, though she doesn't have the offensive capabilities to do any lasting damage and to take them out permanently. It's only a matter of time before Eve's defenses fail, and the Viltrumite in question lands one fatal hit. And since Eve herself isn't nearly as durable as a Viltrumite is, all of it would take is a well-placed blow to take her out of the fight permanently. Killing her, however, is a different matter entirely, because in order to do that, someone would have to act faster than her mental blocks can to falter and to break them. Her power right now is only limited to her creativity and imagination as well as her focus, so in terms of earthbound threats, she is at the top of the totem pole right alongside Invincible. But galactically speaking, she is still a highly respectable opponent. Viltrumites may ravage the Earth, but she will be the one to put it back together. Only time will tell if she will fare in the series adaptation and the Viltrumite invasion, as well as what the future has in store for Eve and Mark. But anyway, friends, what do you think of Adam Eve's insane power? And do you think that eventually she'll be able to stand up to a Viltrumite in the series one-on-one? Are you excited to see how she ends up using her powers in the future as well? But anyway, guys, smash that subscribe button for more, and have a great day.